forgetting my yes. They are trying to separate the love that I'm having for you. But they don't know I am so into you. Now I realize how I do be your boo. Oh, but in a warfare, they're causing confusion. They're causing confusion. So my baby forgetting my yes. They're causing confusion. They're causing confusion. So my baby forgetting my yes. When everybody underrates you, my girl, I go they appreciate you. You know I can never hate you. High above the mud, I will elevate you. I go die on top of your mother, cause your lippy taba taba, they make me the kaya kaya, baby. I go die on top of your mother, cause your lippy taba taba, they make me the kaya kaya, baby. They're causing confusion. They're causing confusion. So my baby forgetting my yes. They're causing confusion. They're causing confusion. So my baby forgetting my yes. But I go follow you every day. I say, see what they did. Tell me now what I did. I go follow you every day. Say what they did. Tell me now what I did. I go die on top of your mother, cause your lippy taba taba, they make me the kaya kaya, baby. I go die on top of your mother, cause your lippy taba taba, they make me the kaya kaya, baby. No, they're causing confusion. They're causing confusion. So my baby forgetting my yes. They're causing confusion.
Welcome back. And when it comes to revenue generation and expenditure by governments in our country, it is always a subject for discussion because there are inequalities that are in there, and many times lots of people try to get solutions to this. This time round, a research and policy think tank called CATS has done an extensive research into how to address some of the inequalities in our fiscal policies in Ghana. And in the studio this morning, I have Mr. Apiakusi Adumako next to me, who is the country coordinator for CATS. And CATS is CUTS, is an abbreviation. And also in the studio, I have Mr. Isaac Obain Farrow from me, who is a deputy coordinator for CATS. Gentlemen, you're welcome.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Yes, we shall be going into the research and find out what there is and what solutions they have for the country as well, for us all to pick up and work on. First of all, you are a policy think tank, and you're concerned about the fiscal policies that we have in addressing inequalities in the country. But then, what is the object of this particular research that you carried out?
Okay. So we've seen before the research, we all know empirically that there is a lot of inequalities in the country. The poor getting poorer, the rich getting richer. And also, as you go to some part of the country, you realize that there is inequality in some part. Is the distribution of inequality is located in some areas than the other. So we look at how can government use the tool of taxation to address these inequalities. You know, the whole element of taxation is tax and spend. That is what government should do. You take money from the rich and you redistribute it to the society and make life better for people.
Okay, so that was the inspiration that you have for embarking on this. And according to your research, You said 55% of taxes are from indirect sources, and that is VAT, excise duties, and custom duties, for instance. And this is regressive, you said,
Yes.
because it's direct, and also you said around 30% of this tax is VAT, is from VAT, and the poor are overly exposed to indirect taxes. This is one of your findings. You want to explain that to us?
Okay.
How is the poor overly exposed to indirect taxes?
Okay, thank you. You know, indirect taxes are normally it's also called consumption taxes. And things that we buy, fuel, food, other clothing, mobile phones, computers, all those items, government puts taxes on them. And when you compare the items that the poor Ghanaian is using, and you also compare what the rich Ghanaian is also using, you see that the poor is almost paying the same amount of taxation as the rich Ghanaian.
Okay.
Now, in every tax design, we make tax collection so progressive that the higher you have, the more you should pay. But this indirect taxes makes no distinction between the rich and the poor.
Okay.
And so it kind of make them so overly exposed. And for example, someone lives in Abokobi area, there's no water there, so the person has to fall on sachet water. The rich man also lives in the same neighborhood, there's also no potable water there, so they have to fall on sachet water. Now, there are taxes on sachet water, and you realize that the poor is paying the same as the rich. So what most countries have done is that in designing their indirect taxes, they look at items that the poor
rich would buy and what the poor would buy.
And then they kind of segregate them and reduce the tax rate on for the poor, and then kind of increase that one for the rich.
Okay.
But in Ghana, we don't do that.
That
we kind
distinction. So everybody is tax the same, and even though we should be focusing on alleviating the problems of the poor, we sort of put them at par. I think that is where we're
yes,
driving at.
Yes.
Okay, but we do hear government talk most of the time about widening the tax nets so that a lot more people can be roped in, and then we can generate more to solve our problems. Yes,
Okay.
you want to take that one for me?
Okay, so widening the tax net doesn't mean that those who are affected negatively should continue to be taxed. If we want to widen the tax net, how can we do it? There are certain areas that have not been harnessed yet. So we need to fish out for these areas.
Okay.
You can look at the informal sector. Most of the informal sectors are not taxed. We need to collect data on the informal sector in Ghana, or sectors in Ghana.
Okay.
So that if we get the data of the informal sector, we'll be able to locate them wherever they are and to tax them. Apart from that, there are other means. You can talk of even church taxes. There are churches who are not, who are operating sometimes commercially. They are doing business out of their churches, yet they are not paying taxes. Apart from that, widening the tax net also comes with the issue of property taxes. This is a very gray area that has not been exploited the most. How can we increase our revenue from there?
Okay.
So these are the areas, the loopholes, the low-hanging areas where we have not plugged. We need to go and plug it rather than continue to tax the poor and making them poorer.
All right. In your findings, you did also find out that tax exemptions and deductions to multinational firms in Ghana amounts to an average of about 1.3 billion US dollars a year. and this is about 2/3 of the education budget, and also about 80% of our health budgets. This should be a concern to all of us as Ghanaians, shouldn't it be? Because if tax exemptions can be up to 80% of our health budget, then what do we do about it?
Well, so, I mean, it's a big issue that we are doling out monies that we don't have, and you go out and beg for money.
Exactly.
$1.3 billion is going out freely, and the sad thing is that when a Ghanaian investor wants to do a business, he goes to take a loan at 35% per annum. A foreigner takes a loan 5% per annum, and the person comes and you give that person a tax exemption. And the Ghanaian doing business here too, you give the Ghanaian no tax exemption. He borrows at high cost, and then they are saddled of cost. So we think that tax exemption to multinational companies needs to be looked at, and the savings that we are getting can be used to finance education. Look, we went to IMF for under $1 billion for a period of 3 years, averaging $300 million every year. And yet every year we are losing 1.3 billion. It's like sitting on the gold and begging for silver.
Yeah.
And I don't think that this tax exemption that we are giving is helping out. And even one issue is this: when these multinationals make profit, they take everything away, and then at the end of the year it also puts a lot of pressure on the cedi, and the poor, and you and I also suffers because the cedi is depreciating at the beginning of the year. And so I think we should look at the homegrown approach in developing the economy. And if somebody wants to come and do business, back in the 80s and the 70s, where Africa was a risk area to do business, and so government was giving incentives for people to come.
Yeah.
But now I think those risk factors have all been eliminated. So if you want to come, just as you are coming and compete and do business and not get any advantage over the other.
Okay, so we should stop giving the tax exemptions.
Yes, I mean, we should look at it critically. I mean, there are some areas maybe where it may be helpful to give exemption because we don't have the local capacity there, so we are bringing foreign investors to come. But the broad wholesale tax exemption, I think that is not necessary.
Okay.
To add to what he said, you know, if FDIs, foreign direct investment, will come to your country, we first of all have to look at which type of FDI is coming to your country. Is it a greenfield investment or a brownfield investment? The greenfield investment talks about an investment that is coming to start from the scratch. The research and development is taking place in your country, manufacturing, processing, everything is done in that country. And in this case, a lot of people are going to be employed out of this FDI. But we have a situation whereby a lot of the investment coming are the brownfield, where they come to acquire already existing firm.
Yeah.
The only thing they do is to change the managerial level, which they bring their own experts, people.
Come and handle.
So in this case, the idea behind the investment of creating jobs and what have you, we don't need them. So we need to look at the type of investment that is coming to our country. So if we see that this is a greenfield investment, then maybe we can give a tax exemption. It shouldn't be, like he said, a wholesale exemption.
Okay, so your research spanned the years 2012 to 2016, and you want to address the inequalities that pertains in our tax regime. What are some of these inequalities that you have identified within the health and education system of our country?
There is a lot of inequalities in education. You realize that if you move away from the cities and you go to the rural areas, the infrastructure that you find in the cities and even the quality of learning environment are not the same. And it's even worse, you go to the 3 northern regions, people still learning under trees, people still crossing rivers to go to school. and this is kind of not auguring well for development of the intellectual base of the country.
Yeah.
And in the health sector too, the poor, I mean, there are a lot of issues with NHIS. When you go to hospital, for example, NHIS is almost not, can only help you to retrieve your folder, but not to pay for prescription. And the poor Ghanaian is kind of has to put his hand into his pocket to pay for medication, and also making life worse for them. Okay. And so one way that we suggested from this report, suggesting from this research, is that, I mean, government expenditure into the health sector can kind of address inequality. And now, it is known that education and health is one of the greatest tools in addressing inequality. Once the poor child and the rich child attain the same level of education, they are kind of be on the same level, and they can compete in the market. But here nowadays, a child in Accra is more likely to make it than a child in other part of the country. And you see the inequality gap. If it's a map, I mean, I wish I could have shown you the map. It's very, very stark, and it's very, very rare. And Charles Darwin said that if the plight of the poor, if the misery of the poor is caused not by natural issues, but our man-made institution, then great is our sin.
Okay.
And if we are making life poorer for the poor, I think that something that God
our
will
sins
not...
are going up. Yeah, literally to say. Okay, so in concluding our discussion, what should be the way forward? You have carried out this research. What should governments be doing, or have you presented it to government for consideration and all that? Let's see what you want from government.
Okay, for now, because we want our research findings to reach the decision makers,
Yeah.
we are meeting the parliamentary select committees on health, education, local government, and finance.
Okay.
To raise some of the issues that came out of our finding.
Okay.
And we want government to improve the progressiveness of health spending and halt the reduction in spending overall.
Okay.
Yeah. We want the government to increase the pro-poor and progressive nature of education spending. In terms of education, for example, I mean, we should look at the issue of equity before equality. Why do I mean by that? Let's look at a scenario here. You have two athletes who have been placed on a track and over track to run. You agree with me that the one inside the track will have an advantage, because an over track, you know, if you are inside, you have a shorter distance to travel than the one outside.
Yeah.
So what do we need to do? We need to give some impetus to the one outside the track. So in this case, those in the rural areas needs to be given certain incentives that will give them, urge them to be able to compete with those in the cities.
Okay.
You cannot say that.
So how soon are you meeting Parliament select committees to discuss these, so that we want progress for our country? How soon are you meeting them?
We are meeting them starting from next week, and we're also sharing the findings with the Ministry of Finance and making input into the 2019 budget statement.
Okay. All right. That will be a step in the right direction. We need to end it here for now and pick it up later as and when it evolves. Okay. So thanks very much to you, Mr. Pierre Kusi Adumaku, who is the country coordinator for CATS, and also thanks to you, Isaac Ya Obain, deputy coordinator for CATS. We're grateful for your time and the extensive research that you have done. I'm sure going deeper into, we'll be able to discover more that can actually make us move our nation forward in terms of solving the inequalities that we have in our system. And we're also grateful to STEM Pets, Cakes and Floral Institute, who is partnering with us this morning and on every Wednesday on the Breakfast Show. It is a vocational institute that is located in Dakuma Nyamiche near Mambo Sports. And they can offer training for you and I in cake artistry, cookery art, floral artistry, fashion designing, and pastry artistry as well. And so if you want to locate them, and you should be locating them, you can contact them on this number 0244 220 331, 0244 220 331, or 0245 882432, 0245 882432. Or you can also call them for your delicious pastries and also training on 024 11 87 833, 024 11 87 833. And remember, if you are a poor guy, you want to be heading towards home this weekend, the 23rd to the 25th, as you hand over that beautiful project that you have done for the school. Be proud of you. Coming up is the paper review segment of the show, and Danny is in charge. Please stay with us.
Oh yeah, yeah. Because in confusion, yeah, causing confusion. So my baby forgetting my yes. They are trying to separate the love that I'm having for you. But they don't know I am so into you. Now I realize how I do be your boo. Oh, buying a warfare, buying a warfare. Oh, they're causing confusion. They're causing confusion. So my baby forgetting my yes. They're causing confusion. They're causing confusion. So my baby forgetting my yes. When everybody underrates you, my girl, I go they appreciate you. You know I can never hate you. I above the more I will elevate you. I go die on top of your matter, cause you're lippy, taba, taba. They make me the kaya, kaya, baby. I go die on top of your matter, cause you're lippy, taba, taba. They make me the kaya, kaya, baby. They're causing confusion. They're causing confusion. So my baby forgetting my yes. They're causing confusion. They're causing confusion. So my baby forgetting my yes. But I go follow you every day. I say, see the one day. Tell me now what I do, maybe I go follow you every day. Say the one day. Tell me now what I do, maybe why. I go die on top of your matter, cause you're lippy, taba, taba. They make me the kaya, kaya, baby. I go die on top of your matter, cause you're lippy, taba, taba. They make me the kaya, kaya, baby. No, they're causing confusion. They're causing confusion. So my baby forgetting my yes. They're causing confusion. They're causing confusion. So my baby forgetting my yes. I give up to Almighty. They're causing confusion. I give up, they're causing confusion. So my baby forgetting my yes. Oh yeah, yeah. They're causing confusion. I give up, they're causing confusion. So my baby forgetting my yes. I give up to be your Messiah. You say this love not be work for you, say you no go retire. Stop complaining, baby, stop complaining. I say I love you, but today no one complaining. I swear, the moon and the stars, I'll take you there, oh mama, my baby. I go take bullet for you. I said no be one, baby, no be two. I go take bullet for you. Make I protect you with my bulletproof bullet for you. I said no be one, baby, no be two. I go take bullet for you. Make I protect you with my bulletproof bullet. Love to love ya, love ya, love ya. Baby, I know I die.
Welcome to the paper review segment of the breakfast show this morning, and I have my guest already seated in the studio. Very interesting person, and I know if I introduce them, you know what I'm saying, what I'm saying, and we're going to have a very lovely discussion this morning. Let me go straight ahead and introduce them, and then come back and we start with business. Now, just to my side, I have